During the early hours of October 7th, hundreds of Israelis documented their moments of life by texting to their families a goodbye message before Hamas murdered them. I want to share some of these messages with this congregation. Mom, I love you all. Someone's here. I'm holding the door. People are here. Can't write. I love you all. Eliran, I love you. Help Mom with Shani and Tatsu. That's all I ask. It's the end. They got to me. Honey, sorry about everything. Take care of the kids. Send a kiss to Mom. I love you guys. I'm sorry. The colloquial word goodbye, it's a 16th century English contraction meaning God be with you. Because people then didn't know when or if they would ever see someone again. But as time progressed, goodbye, it just became another way of saying, see you later. And now, never would I have ever imagined reading different nuances of goodbye in a text message right before the largest mass murder of Jews since 1945, ultimately rewriting the 16th century definition of knowing that their goodbye was the final farewell, knowing that they would never see their families again. I just want us to try to empathically imagine this. It's 6:30 in the morning, or for us, I believe it's 8 hours or back, 10:30 or 11:30, and just pick up your cell phone. Some type of a goodbye, followed by I love you, and I'm sorry. I don't have the words to capture the terror that so many families face with their lives that changed forever when they received these messages a mere seconds on October 7th. And once again, the bane of being a Jew, we are left to ask, how can God allow this to happen once more? There's an obligation we learn in rabbinical school that rabbis must respond to any theological crisis, regardless how horrendous the circumstance and regardless how brutal the adversity entails. In this sense, it is not valid for any rabbi to simply say, we have no words. There are times when this obligation is easier said than done. Or as a student, I could say, there's times when this obligation is easier taught than implemented in the field. Living a Jewish life with meaning and joy, whether as a rabbi, as a cantor, a Jewish professional, or as a congregant post-October 7th, this is now the most difficult mission in contemporary Jewry, especially as we wrestle and grapple with God and suffering. And as Jonathan Sacks once wrote, despair is not a Jewish emotion, for there is a Jewish way of telling the story of our situation. What happens is not chance, but a chapter in the complex script of the covenant which leads, mysteriously but assuredly, to our redemption. Crisis in Jewish history has always led to renewal, not despair, so it must be now. I'm a Jew, and I'm a rabbi. And I have some questions about this quote. Just a few. How do we find the strength to write the next chapter after reading this quote? And what does redemption even look like or tangibly feel moving forward? And finally, how do we find renewal post-October 7th with a broken Israel and a fragmented diasporic Jewish community? And these questions are so hard to answer. But it's not the first time as a Jewish people that we ever faced them. We figured out how to do it 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and we figured out how to live a meaningful Jewish life 85 years ago after the Shoah, after the Holocaust. And so, we must do it again after October 7th. We don't get a pass on dodging these questions because it's happening right now. It's not a hypothetical question. It's not a history lesson that we may have learned at Sunday school or in college of what we would have done in between 1933 and 1945. It's real. Because regardless of the pain, the issues of God and suffering, the anguish from October 7th, and its igniting of record highs of the most grotesque and violent anti-Semitic attacks against our people throughout the diasporic world, Judaism still commands us to live a life of significance, creating lasting memories and sacred moments. But here lies the hard truth. If we sit this one out, because it's too hard to care and not to be proactive in our Judaism, it's not just us who truly suffers. This will absolutely affect the next generation of Jews who will lose out from enjoying the richness of Judaism and our peoplehood. And this is something that I, and frankly we, cannot allow to happen on our watch. For those Jews who choose to be on the sidelines, and for those Jews who don't make Judaism a foundational core in their lives, is the very thing that will give Hamas and the anti-Semites the victory. For accept this absolute fact. Any Jew hearing these words this morning at our synagogue, or those Jews watching our live stream, or those Jews who are at shul, they must realize, we must realize that our direct descendants never gave up on their Judaism despite the world they faced. Because if they did, we as a Jewish people would not exist. On October 7th, the victims were murdered for the sole crime of being a Jew. It was so important for them to say their final goodbyes as Jews. And the question I asked this morning, what will our message be as Jews to those who were slaughtered? Because we are the Jewish people who are the living heirs as a global Jewish family to ensure their murder is never forgotten and to ensure their memories are forever a blessing and to ensure their martyrdoms, as Jonathan Poland, the father of Hirsch, said at his funeral, are a revolution. and when the history books are written, what will our chapter say about us? The first and foremost response is that we cannot take life for granted. Each day is a blessing. That's why we immediately wake up in the morning and say, Modeh ani lefanecha, thanking God to be alive with the blessing that we can do good. Each day we have the power to repair relationships. Each day we know it's a possibility that we may make mistakes, but on the next day we strive to endeavor to fix it. Each day we get to celebrate the joy from our family and friends. And each day we get to be thankful for the gift of life. And we cannot take Judaism for granted anymore. And I want to say this one more time. We cannot take our Judaism for granted anymore. Our rabbis teach us that the Second Temple was destroyed because of the baseless hatred toward fellow Jews. If there's ever a call for Jews to stop ridiculing Jews over their own ritual purposes, now is the time. And whether our synagogue is located on Highland Avenue, or if we pray on Overton Road, or if we live in Tel Aviv and enjoy going to the beach or going to the clubs at night, or if we live in Muncie, New York, a very deeply Orthodox Jewish community, we were all once standing shoulder to shoulder together at Sinai thousands of years ago. It's time to stand together once more, but this time in perpetuity. Because one of the lessons that I learned after October 7th is that I'm so sick and tired of labels and identities. Reform, conservative, Orthodox, renewal, reconstruction. Because before Hamas murdered our people, they didn't ask about movements. Before Hamas murdered our people, they didn't ask if we were Ashkenazic, Sephardic, or Mizrahim. Before Hamas murdered our people, they didn't ask if we were members of the JCC or if we donated to our local Jewish agencies. Before Hamas murdered our children, they didn't ask where we send our children to Jewish summer camp. And before Hamas murdered our people, they didn't ask if we kept kosher or could understand Hebrew or Yiddish. Second, my family, the three of them are looking at me right now especially, grew tired of my frequent use of statistics in my high holiday sermons. Is that a clap? No more numbers. Just maybe this last little time. Data suggests that for Judaism and our Jewish identities to flourish, and I'm going to say this with meaning and intentionality, this type of flourishing Judaism can't be focused solely on tikkun olam, repairing the world, which has been misinterpreted in its original presentation in the Talmud and in Kabbalah. One of my heroes, Rabbi Samson Hirsch, who was the father of modern Orthodox Judaism, who taught us to engage the non-Jewish world, he wanted us to be active, to feed the poor, to feed the non-Jewish poor, to assist by word and deed, to display the entire noble breadth of our Judaism, especially to the greater community. And we will always do this, but it's not the only way we do Judaism. Synagogues need to be a place for spiritual refuge, Torah study, and prayer. It cannot be a place where political punditry permeates regardless of party affiliation, regardless of policies and issues. And especially not through a very concerning and rising practice of universalism in the synagogue, in the seminaries, and in Jewish nonprofits that deludes our core identity, spirituality, particularism, and uniqueness. The soul of Judaism in the synagogue has always been designed to be centered on God, Torah, and Israel. Third, I want to speak to our members with young families. A few years ago, I stood at the same spot, right on this bema, urging this demographic to make Judaism a priority. And I thought my success on the tennis court in juniors and in college allowed me the authority to criticize your children's passions for their athletics. I remember saying, they are not going to become professional athletes. My hubris attempt to predict something that I had no control over not only didn't work, it bothered people. And my call to action fell on deaf ears. And this is something I truly regret. For you are the next generation of Jews that we are counting on us to lead. I don't know what to do to get the demographic of young families actively excited about temple life. We have tried so many programs. We have relied upon countless studies from professionals in the field to find the perfect remedy to get you back involved. Whether volunteering, being on committees, or in governance, and coming to Shabbat services often. It didn't work. And I've came to realize this past year that I know these young families, you love your Judaism in your own special and unique way. Your children attend Jewish summer camp, which is so crucial for fostering a strong Jewish identity. But it's the synagogue. This is the most historic and vital institution to ensure Judaism's survival. It's here we celebrate simchas. It's here we comfort the mourner. It's here we learn the tenets of our faith. And it's here that we will prepare your children how to advocate for their Jewish identity, Zionism, and Israel on the college campus. One of the greatest lessons that I've ever learned in rabbinical school was to acknowledge that we make mistakes. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I do know this. If we are going to write the next chapter of Jewish life post-October 7th, we need our young families not only engaged, but ready to take the helm. At this pivotal moment in Jewish history, what do you want your Jewish legacy to be for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, for the Jews in Birmingham and Alabama, for the Jews living in the diasporic world, and for the Jews that are living in the state of Israel? Only you, my young families, only you can decide your legacy. and we will do everything we can as a Temple family to help you write it. Because at the end of the day, it's your legacy that is forever. And finally, we need to recognize that October 7th is not only the challenges to overcome. We need to understand, know, and care that American Jews are less likely to attend religious services regularly. Our Reform and conservative seminaries are in utter disarray, and I know we have some congregants from Cincinnati, but this is personal. We have tremendously low enrollments in rabbinical school and in cantorial school, and our seminaries are facing enormous financial challenges. We're not having enough children. The Jewish population is declining. Just under half of American Jews have been to Israel, and we still have record high rates of unaffiliation. Max Nardot, who was a co-founder of the Zionist organization with Theodor Herzl, once said, "The Jew learns not way of reason, but from catastrophes. He won't buy an umbrella merely because he sees clouds in the sky. He waits until he is drenched and catches pneumonia." And in a way, we are the proverbial drenched people who have pneumonia. And it's time to buy the umbrella. Because Judaism cannot bleed out, with the final chapter documenting the torrid goodbyes through text messages from innocent Jews on a Jewish holiday in the early fall of last year. We don't want this final chapter highlighting our dismal statistics and the fraction of our people in the diaspora and in the state of Israel. Nordor wasn't wrong, but to complement his metaphor of having pneumonia, and yes, I'm looking to all of you doctors out there, thank God we have the Z-Pack. Thought it'd be delivered better. We know that we have a lot of work to do if we want to turn this around. And I think we can, because we have always found a way. And if there's something special, something crucial, something to take away from October 7th, and I want this to be our core mission statement. This mission statement is that Judaism needs Jews, and Jews need Judaism. We need to stop taking our Judaism for granted, for all of us need to be part of it, making it better, making it stronger, and making it more joyful. We want our Judaism to shine, representing our core purpose for living. We want our Judaism to repair the brokenness of our communities. We want our Judaism to comfort the mourner and to celebrate the wedding couple. We want our Judaism to love Israel unconditionally, despite her imperfections. We want our Judaism to love Am Yisrael, and even when there are differences of ritual and practice. By definition, I am a Reformed rabbi. But I'm so blessed to say that I have a wonderful relationship now with Temple Beth-El, and especially Chabad on Overton Road. If more Jewish movements could see unity and see we have so much better to offer when we stop being so tribal in our own sandbox. And just because there are different rituals, and just because one movement will interject on our own Jewish ethos, we take the high road because we remember that even with different forms of religiosity, we were still standing shoulder to shoulder at Sinai. Because we want our Judaism to continue to embody Torah study, prayer, and a heightened sense of spirituality. We want our Judaism to remember to celebrate the joy and gift of Shabbos, to take a break from the profane of life, light candles, come to shul. We made them at 6 o'clock, and you still can go to dinner after. Spend time with your family. And for the love of God, just put aside the cell phone for a day. When the history books are written about us, our chapter will articulate how we empowered our Judaism during the most difficult time in decades. And we want future generations to know how we used our Judaism to ensure that the victims' and soldiers' memories are forever lasting blessing and never forgotten. We want future generations to know that we remember to be thankful for each day that we have on earth, recognizing the power to pursue peace, the power to love, and the power to have compassion. And finally, we often associate a revolution with a war. But our revolution is not violent. It's our pledge to ensure that Judaism is fortified forever. And as we start this new year, and we start picking up the broken pieces off the ground, remember the core mission statement that I want all of us to live by is that Judaism needs Jews, and Jews need Judaism. Good Yom Tov.